Hello everyone, my name is Confident and thanks for checking out this video. Admin panels are super important because they can be used to manage a lot of things such as sales, analytics, user management, and so much more. And that being said, it can be quite difficult to find the right tool to build these admin panels, a tool which is robust and at the same time easy to use. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use Django Admin to build admin dashboards very quickly. And together we'll be building an admin dashboard to manage user reviews. By building this application along with me, you're going to learn the ins and outs of Django Admin. So make sure that you follow along as we go on building this application. I'm going to leave links to relevant resources that will be used throughout this video in the video description. So be sure to check that out. Alright, let's get started. This is the application we are going to be building throughout this video. So let's have a brief run through of the application. The application is designed to be used by moderators to manage reviews. So this is especially useful if you own a big platform that has a couple of businesses and you want users to be able to leave reviews. So it will make sense to have moderators that would be able to approve a review or reject a review. So that is what this dashboard would be able to do. So let's have a run through. We have a list of businesses right here. And as you can see, this is a long list. So it is paginated by Django Admin. We can easily browse through by clicking on the numbers we have at the bottom here. To the other side of the list, we have a filter where we can filter by stars. So clicking on 2.5, we can see businesses with the stars of 2.5, and we can drill down to also filter by state. Clicking on FL, we can see businesses that are in Florida that have the stars of 2.5, and that is what is shown up on the table. So let us clear all filters. We can also search by name. So if we type in something like exec and search for that, we can see businesses with a name having executive in them. So let's go back to the entire list. And more importantly, we can drill down into a business and then see reviews that have been made by users for that particular business. So for this business, for example, we have a couple of reviews. We have about 3 of them. And as a moderator, what I can go and do is to look at the content of the review. If it is not offensive, I can go ahead to approve this review and then save it by clicking on the save button right here. And we have the success message that it has been saved. Let us take a look at it to see if that was actually saved. And we can see that that is saved because we like the review and he gave us 5 stars. So this is what we're going to be building in this video. One thing to note is that throughout this video, we'll be building the application using the Yelp open data set. So make sure you grab this. It is free and it is public. We're going to be making use of this because it has the reviews table we would need. It also has the business table and the users table we are going to need throughout this video. So go ahead to grab this. I'll leave a link to this data set in the description to make it easy for you to find it later on. Alright, for us to get started, let us head over to Code Editor. We are using Visual Studio Code for this video, so let's open that up. And right here, we have the server of our application running. So let's quit this and start up a new project. So I'm going to quit this, and I'm going to go back. So right here, the first thing I'll need to do will be to start up a new Django project. And for you to do this, you need to have a few things. First, you need to have Python installed. I'll leave a link in the description to help you do that. You also have to have Django installed. So I'll also leave a link to help you do that. If you have both of these installed, we can go on with building the project. So the command you need to run to create a project is Django admin start project and then the name of the project. So let's call this project Yelp. And there Django admin will go ahead to create a Yelp project for us. So let us open up this project in Visual Studio Code. So we can say code Yelp-R. And here we have the project loaded up. So taking a look at the files in this project, you can see that we have a Yelp folder that contains all the settings and configurations we would be taking a look at as we go on in this video. We also have a manage.py file, and this is the file we'll be using to interact with Django for this particular project. Alright, so the next thing we need to do will be to create an application. Django has this idea that a project contains multiple apps, and apps are modular in such a way that they can be used across projects. So let's create an app that will be in the Yelp project, and let's call this app reviews. So for this, we are going to say Python manage.py start app, and then the name of the app, let's call this app reviews. And then we have an app called reviews created. We can see the folder has been generated for us. We're going to be taking a closer look at this later on as we go in the video. The next thing we need to do is to actually go and register this application in the Yelp project. So to do that, open up this settings.py file in the Yelp folder and scroll to the line where it says installed apps. This is a list, and we are going to be adding the reviews app right here so that it is registered in this project. So to do that, I'm just going to add a new entry here. So let's say reviews.apps.review config, and there we have the application registered. The next thing we want to do would be to connect this project to the database. I'm going to open up Posticle. Posticle is a database management tool, and right here you can see that I have a couple of databases. I'm going to be using the Yelp database. So what I want to do would be to connect this project to the Yelp database. So to do that, let's head back to VS Code, and in the settings.py file, scroll to the line where it says databases right here. You notice that by default, Django admin connects to an SQLite database, but for this demo, we're going to be using Postgres. So let's go on to supply the credentials to connect to our Postgres database. So for that, we will need to update the engine and say Postgres. And then for the database name, the name of our database is Yelp, as I showed you earlier. Then we need to provide a host. And for this host, this will be 127.0.0.1, which is home. And lastly, we also need to provide a port, and that will be the default port Postgres runs on. So this is going to be port. And then for the port, this will be 5432. All right, so we can go ahead to save this. And then what we want to do next would be to run a command that will actually go ahead to set up database tables for these installed apps. So if you notice here, we have a couple of installed apps, including the reviews apps we have right here. So we want to go ahead to run a migration that would set up database tables for all of these apps. So to do that, we are going to use the migrate command. So this is Python manage.py migrate. All right, it seems I have a typo right here, so I'm just going to go ahead to fix this. This should be reviews, and this should be reviews config. So I'm going to save this and rerun the migrate command. So let's do that. And there we have the tables created. So we can confirm this by heading back to Posticle, and then we would see that on reloading, we have a bunch of tables that have been created by Django admin to manage our entire project. So at this point, what I'd like to do would be to start up the Python dev server. So let's do that. We're going to say Python manage.py run server. And then we have a Python dev server running. I'm going to leave this server running in the background because it does not need to be automatically restarted whenever we change a file. And I'll go on to create a new terminal window that we can run new commands from. All right, so that is all set up. The next thing we need to do would be to actually go ahead to mount the admin application in the home route. And we can do that in the urls.py file. By default, the admin application is mounted in the /admin route, but we actually want it to be mounted on the home route. Here is where we get to configure that. So let us say, let's just remove that and replace that with an empty string, and we can save this, and then the admin application has been mounted to the home route. The next thing we need to do would actually be to go ahead to create models that describe the tables we are going to be making use of. So remember that we mentioned I'll be making use of the Yelp dataset, which you can grab from the Yelp website. I already have that downloaded, and we have 3 tables we'll be working with. We have the reviews table, we have the business table, and we have the users table. So we need to write a model that describes the shape of each of these tables in our Django application. So to do that, we are going to open up the reviews folder, and right here where it says the models.py file, this is where we'll be doing all of our work from. We'll be describing models that shows the shape of each of those tables. The first model I like to write out here is the business model, which describes the business table. So this is going to be a class, business, and this is going to be inheriting from models.model. And then we can go on to configure the fields that that particular table is going to have. So this table is going to have an ID field, and the ID field would be a character type. So this will be models.char field. And because it's a char field, it must have a max length. So we have to add a max length. Let us set this to a max length of 100. Then the next thing we want to do would also be to set this as the primary key. So we're going to say primary key, and we're going to set this to true. And then we have the ID configured. The reason why we are doing this is because the ID we are supplying is of a type text. By default, Django admin knows how to manage IDs. So if you have an ID which is of type int, you do not have to worry about that. Django admin can manage it. But if you have an ID which is of a different type, you need to tell Django admin here what to do about that ID. And that is why we have specified an ID here. The next thing we need to do will also be to specify a name, because a business has a name. And this will be models.char field. It is also going to have a max length of 100. What I'm going to do at this point is just to type out all the remaining properties for the business model and the other models we'll need to work with. I don't want to type all of that out because it's going to be boring. So when I'm done with typing, I'll show you the code and we are going to go over it together. All right, so we have the code for the models right here. So let's just close the terminal, and so that we have more room to take a look at everything. So we started off with the business model, which represents the business table. It has an ID, has a name, has an address, has a city, has a state, stars, and category. And for properties that are nullable, we need to pass these null attributes and to tell Django admin that these properties can be nullable by saying null true. Then moving on, we have the users table. A user has an ID, has a name property, and has a Yelping since, which is a date time field. And you notice that each of these models have a string method. This is really useful because when Python tries to get objects created with this class, we can easily see the name of that particular item for the user. The same also goes for the business and for the review. Going to the review, a review has an ID, which is the primary key. A review also has a status, which is a char field type. But right here, we are doing something a little bit extra because we want to show a drop down of options to select from. So here we are passing a choices tuple, and inside of that tuple defined here, we have an approved state, we have a pending state, and we have a rejected state. By default, we are setting the state to be pending. So this is having a default state. And then moving on with the properties of the review, a review also has a user. So this is a foreign key field which references the user who created that review. So we can see that we are passing in the user class right here. And then we are saying that whenever that user gets deleted, also deletes the review that has been made by that user. Same also goes for the business. Business is a foreign key field which references the business class, and we want this review to be deleted whenever that business gets deleted. And we also have stars, text, and date field. So these are the models that we would need for our application, and this is how you can set up models in Django admin. So I'm going to save this up, and let us open the terminal to create migrations for these models we have made. So to do that, we are going to type in Python manage.py, make migrations, reviews. For this review, for the reviews app, so we're going to hit enter, and we can see that a migration for the models we described has been created. The next thing we want to do would be to go ahead to apply these migrations. So to do that, we're going to say Python manage.py migrates. and then that migration has been applied. So if we go back to the database in using PostSQL, we can reload this, and here you notice that 3 new tables have been created. We have one for the business, we have another for the users, and we have one more for the review. So at this point, we want to go ahead to import the data we downloaded from Yelp reviews. So remember I showed you a bunch of files here. This will be the point where we'll go ahead to import them into their respective tables. So the first I'm going to be importing will be the business. So I'm going to click on import and select the Yelp business. And then I'll go on to specify which fields I want to import. So for the business ID column, I want this to be mapped to the ID. For the name, same goes for name, address, city, state, and the stars. Those are the columns I want to be imported. So I can go on to click on import, and there we have the businesses imported, and you can see that right here. The next thing I want to import will be the users. In importing each of these columns, the order is important. This is because if you go ahead to try to import the review first, the review actually depends on the business table and the user table. So you need to have those two tables set up before you actually go to start importing reviews, because it will cause errors if those tables are not set up. So let's go ahead to import the user table. So I'm going to click on import and select the users. Then a user has an ID, has a name, and has a Yelping since, which is a date. So I'm going to import this. All right. So we have the users imported. And lastly, we can now go on to import the reviews because of that dependency I described earlier. So let's import reviews, and we can import this. So a review has an ID, which is mapped to the review ID, has a user ID, has a business ID, has a stars column, and we also have status, text, and date. So let's import this. All right. And there we have the reviews imported. So we have all of the data imported, and now we can go ahead to start checking out the application. So to do that, we can go back to the browser and visit the visit the address of our application. So let's just visit localhost port 8000, which is the port that Django admin runs by default. You notice right here it is asking us to log in. So we do not have an admin user. We need to create one to be able to log in to view our application. So to do this, let's head back to Visual Studio Code and let's create an admin user. So to create an admin user, we need to use the create super user command. So let's do that. This will be Python manage.py create super user. And here we can go in to supply the details of the admin user. So we need to supply a username. Let's set the username to admin. For the email address, this will be admin@mail.com. Then for a password, I'm just going to use 123456. I'm going to type that again. It's trying to tell us that our password is weak. I do not care because this is a test user. And there we have a user created. So now we can head back to the browser and try to view our app. So let's type in the username, which is admin. And for the password, this is 123456. And I'm going to log in, and here you see that we have an application. But unfortunately, we do not have the businesses and reviews showing up. How do we fix that? We need to register these models so that Django admin knows about them and displays them right here on the dashboard. So let's head back to Visual Studio Code. We will need to do that in the reviews admin.py file. First thing you need to do here in this file is that you need to import those two classes or models. So we are going to say from .models import business, and we also want to import reviews. All right, so we have those two imported. Now we can go ahead to register these models. So we can say admin.site.register. Want to register the businesses. Have that registered. Then we also want to register the review. All right. So we're going to save this and then we head back to the browser. Let's reload this. And here you can see that we have our reviews app showing up. And under the reviews app, we have the businesses table. We also have the reviews table. And we can check this out by clicking on any of them. And right here, we can see the name of the user who left the review. We can click on this and see more information about that review. We can go back to the reviews app and click on a business. And right here, we can see a table of businesses. You can drill down by clicking on a business. And here we have more information about the business. But this is not as clean as we want it to be. What we want is that we want reviews for a particular business to be shown under that individual business. This makes it easy to know what businesses have what particular reviews and to draw that kind of relationship. So to do this, we would need to configure the dashboard a little bit. And Django Admin gives us the ability to do that. So let's head back to customize the dashboard. So I'm going to head back to Visual Studio Code. And in order to customize the dashboard, I would need a class to do that. So let's call this class business admin. You can name this class whatever you want. Any name is going to be fine, but try to make your class descriptive. And this is going to be inheriting from admin.modeladmin. Now we can go on to specify what kind of customization we want to give to this particular class. So we want for the list display, we want to show a bunch of things. Going back to the business list, right now we are only seeing the names of the businesses, but we want to show a couple of things. So we do that by passing those things into the list display. So what we want to show up is the business name. We also want to show up the business city. We want to show up the stars. And lastly, categories. We can save this. And then the next thing we need to do would actually be to use this custom configuration we have made in the register field of that particular table. So for the business table, we just need to pass this class as a second parameter into the register method here. So let us say business admin. And we can go ahead to save this and head back to the browser to reload it. So let's reload this. And right here, you can see that we have the names of the business showing up. We also have the cities showing up, the stars, and the categories in the order we defined them. The next thing we want to do would actually be to add a filter. So we are going to say list filter. And this is going to be an array. We want to be able to filter by stars. And we also want to be able to filter by state. So let's save this, head back to the browser and reload this. And right here, you can see that we have a filter created. We can go ahead to filter by stars and state. We also want to add a search field. So let's say search fields. We want this to be searchable by the business name. So let's pass in the name property. So I'm going to save this. And you will notice as soon as I reload that a search input would show up here. And there we have a search input where we can go on to search for a business by name. All right, so we have the business table configured. The next thing we want to do is that we want it such that the reviews for a particular business are actually shown inside that business whenever it is clicked on. So to do that, we need to create a class for the reviews. So let's call this class review inline. And this is going to be inheriting from the admin.tabular inline class. The next thing we want to do here would be to specify the model it is going to be referring to. So use the model, and the model it would be referring to is the review model. All right, so we can save this. And lastly, what we want to do here would be to refer to the review inline inside of the business admin. So we have the inlines array, and what we want to do here is just to pass the review inline class. So we can go ahead to save this and then head back to the browser and reload it. All right. And right inside the business, you can see now that we have the reviews for that particular business showing up. So we have a couple of reviews showing up here, and they all belong to the business that was selected from the table. But you notice that we have a couple of blank reviews showing up as well on the table. This is because Django admin is trying to be helpful. So it is creating a few extra review entries so that we can easily go into typing a couple of reviews and save them. But we do not want that for this particular application. So what we can do is to tell Django not to create extra reviews by saying extra equals to 0. So we can save this and reload the application. And you can see that we just have the 3 reviews for this particular business showing up. We do not have any extra reviews showing up. So here we have the application configured. So we can just take a quick look at what we have built so far. Let us head to the home page. And here we have the Auth app and the Reviews app. Selecting the Reviews app, we can click on a particular business. And there we have more information about the business. And this is also editable. Then scrolling down, we can see all the reviews that have been made by users for that particular business. We can see the user who has made that review, and we can update the status of the review. But there's something we need to do. Although we have our application fully functional, our application is not as clean as it should be. So what we want to do is to make it as clean as possible. And we can do that by removing the extra reviews model we have right here and entirely removing the authentication and authorization app. So for us to do this, let's head back to VS Code. All right, so right here we are in the admin.py file. We need to import a few new things. So we are going to import from Django.contrib.auth.model. So what we want to import is the group model. We also want to import the user model. And below this, what we want to do is just to unregister those models. And that is going to entirely remove the authentication and authorization app. So we're going to say admin.site.onregister. I want to pass in group model. We want that to be unregistered. The next thing we want to also do is to unregister the user model. And we have that right there. And lastly, we can just remove the registration for the review because we already have that embedded in the business. And we can go ahead to save this and take a look by going back to our application. So I'm going to reload this. And right here, you can see that we have a really clean app showing up. So under the reviews app, we just have businesses. And we can click on this to see the list of businesses we have coming from the database. We can select a particular business to see more information about that business. All of these fields are editable. And then we can also see reviews that have been made by users for that particular business. So let's see if we can approve this review. This user has given a nice review with 4 stars, and this is the name of the user. We can go ahead to set this to approved, and we can scroll down, click on the save, and here we have a success message telling us that has been saved. We can check on it by visiting that business, and we can see that our review has been approved and that was actually saved. Awesome. So this is how you can build admin panels using Django admin. Speaking about admin panels, you can build complex admin panels very quickly without writing a ton of code using AppSmith. Visit appsmith.com or use the link in the description to get started. Alright, this will be all from my end. Thanks so much for seeing this video and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.